Let me take the seatbelt off. Hey, y'all. This your friend, your girl, Tahiri Divine. You can find me on all my social sites as Tahiri Divine. But today I'm coming in a different archetype. Y'all know I go by Diana, the Metaphysical Midwife, and that's who's showing up today. How you doing? Depending on where you at, please make sure that you're following this page and or channel. Hit the notification bell if you're subscribing to the YouTube channel, because this is going to both places. And let's get into it. I want to talk about something that is very important to all my witchy, magical, you doing your crystals, you doing your candle magic, you doing all that. I want to talk to us. Let's have a conversation, okay? I want to talk to us about this, and this is from, this is where we get caught up and we get messed up at. And I want to help you all out on your magical journey of exploring yourself and tapping into your godhood, because that's where your magicalness should awaken you to. It should awaken you to your godhood story. So 2 years ago, I started my Emergence Temples class, and we were going through the different archetypes of the feminine. One of the archetypes was queen, goddess, priestess, and then also the dark mother. And during the assignments for this, right, I had my ladies write out their mythos as the goddess. So you as the goddess, what is your myth? What is your story? What do you reign over, rule over, or overseer of? Write out the myth of who you are. Now, some of my ladies had difficulties with that, and I had a few that they took off with it, and they took off and they flew high, and I love it. I love to see that. That's what I want to see with all my students, right? So I'm coming back to this because this is something I want all of us to understand, that the highest form of magic, it's not candle, it's not necromancy, it's not the tarot, it's not even what we would consider to be the dark arts, right? The highest form of magic is storytelling. That is the first and only true magic that's really taking place. Now, what you mean by that, Diana? I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. Because it is the art of the story is where people come into an alignment with. Think about your favorite book, your favorite movie, your favorite fairy tale. All of these are stories, and they have some type of resonance with us, right? We're attracted to it. This is why stories like Harry Potter and all these hero journey stories, it's the same concept, from Harry Potter to Moana to Dorothy in Wonderland, or Dorothy was at the Wiz. Alice was in Wonderland. They're stories that are replicating the hero's journey. And if you're not familiar with the hero's journey, look up Joseph Campbell. He did a wonderful, amazing job of breaking down the hero's journey and through the different mythos and stories. The same thing with all the different goddess and god stories. They're hero journey stories, particularly ones who go into they go out into nature or into the world to find these things, to come back and they have these experiences, right? With Alice in Wonderland, one of my favorite stories. She goes into Wonderland and she meets the Cheshire Cat. She meets the Mad Hatter and the Queen and the Caterpillar. She meets all these magical beings that lead her back to herself. Same thing with Dorothy. Dorothy meets the Tin Man, the Lion, who else did she meet? The Scarecrow. And then they finally get to the Wiz just to find out that she herself was the fourth witch. Check into it. Look back in the story and see if you don't see that. Why is it important to understand these stories? It's important before you tap into any type of magical system, whether it's voodoo, hoodoo, Ifa, whatever. You have to know the stories first. It's important to know the stories because you have to know the archetype that is associated to the magical system that you're going to use, because there are tools that are specific for the magical system. This is why a lot of times when a lot of people, and y'all probably seen this happen with these spiritual influencers, right? They were doing their little magic woo and they switch over and go to Jesus, right? Now they're New Age to Jesus videos popping up and they're doing, all that. That's because they did not understand the story that they were in. And that's why you have to start with yourself. This is the same thing when it comes to self-love. When you love yourself because you know the character you are, right? You know the story that you are in, and you know what you're supposed to do within that story. And like many of us, myself included, before we came into our awakening, you started having inkling that something wasn't right, that something's not feeling right. Like I don't feel like I'm where I need to be. or whatever the questioning that led you to start questioning and asking a different set of questions to get you to the place that you are now under the sound of my voice, where you feel like, oh shit, this resonates, right? There was something that led you to make you realize that you were not living out the truth of who you are, or the truth of what's taking place. You need to get behind the veil. You had to get to the whiz to see, like, wait a minute, this shit's a setup. This ain't real. This is not reality. Okay. That is why it's important to know the story. The same thing applies on everything in life. That's what I'm saying. Storytelling is the first highest magic. And it makes so much sense, because think about the story that you have, that you tell yourself about you. What you tell yourself about you either came from your upbringing and your environment, and maybe has that evolved from questions that you started to ask, and now you evolved your story, you shifted your story, or you have a completely different story altogether. You're not even that character that you was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, hell yesterday, right? You have to know your story. I share this example for myself, my money story, right? Because a lot of times when we get into magic, when we start getting into magic, or, you know, when we do a little witchy stuff, it's two reasons why we're in that. We're in that either for money or for men. Just keep it a buck, keep it a 100, all right? Now, my thing, I got in because I wanted some more money. I wanted some fast cash. I wanted to work with, the Lakshmi and the wealth gods and Ganesha and Saint, Germain or whatever his name is. The one that's supposed to bring in money fast, whatever. That's what attracted me. It's like, you know what? I need to get some money, honey. Let me get some money. So I started joining these witchy groups, and you know, it was cute. It was a vibe for a little minute. But then I started to realize I felt myself in a loop. And this is what we have to understand with any spiritual magical system. It is an earth-based practice. Ain't nothing wrong with that, because we live on earth. The problem happens is that because of this earth-based practice, if we don't know the story, the mythos, right? This is why I focus a lot on the goddess archetypes, a lot on the feminine archetypes, so that you can recognize what story that you are living in, and then what story do you want to live. When you understand the story and the mythos, you understand your reality, and you are better able to maneuver in your reality. And your magic that you work has more potency, and it allows you to go into your godhoodness, okay? Because that's what it should remind you. It should reawaken you to your godship. It should not keep you in a consistent cycle of always having to do money rituals, always having to do cinnamon through the door, always having to do something to get quick cash. Your new elevated way of thinking starts to align with the stories that you tell yourself. One of my favorite people is Brene Brown, right? I love that she does a lot of work talking about shame, guilt, and all these ugly things that we experience as a human that we do not necessarily want to talk about, because it ain't sexy to talk about shame. It ain't sexy to talk about guilt and fear. But she takes a great clinical researcher approach to these concepts. And one of the things that she said in one of her specials, I think it was her Netflix special, she said something so important, that a lot of times that we get depressed or sad or whatever negative emotion that we may feel, it's from the story that we told ourselves, right? We created a whole entire narrative that may be true and it may not be true. The point of the matter is, because of the story you told yourself, you start to live it out. It starts to become a confirmation bias with the universe. It starts to show up to you. So if you're telling yourself there's more month than money, if you're telling yourself money don't grow on trees, or money's hard to get, or whatever your story is with money that's not giving you the prosperity that you know you're supposed to be living out, you're going to continue to live in the cycles based on the words that you say and what you believe, the story, the narrative that you are aligning yourself with. I don't know, it's dark in here. I don't like that either. Okay, anyway. Same thing when it comes to relationships, when it comes to, like, for us who want to be with men, right? If you're telling yourself, well, men are dangerous, men are cheaters, which I'm not going to lie to you, that shit's true too. That's true too, okay? That's true. However, if you want to align yourself to a different story, then you need to give yourself a different story to live out. Is there an archetype that is associated with a positive experience with the man, or a positive relationship experience, right? You have to align yourself with that. You have to, and this is, oh Lord, this is a thing that people don't want to hear all the time, and y'all gonna have to get this work today. When you decide to change your story, you can't keep the same behaviors you had with your old story. You gotta dead that character. You gotta dead that bitch. She can't come with you. She has to be dead. She has to be gone. You have to completely shift not just your thinking, but the way you behave and react to your environment now, even if it means changing up the environment to suit that new person, new being, that new narrative, right? Because your narratives are going to be what leads you into your magical, mystical journey. It's what you tell yourself. It's what you believe. It's what you are willing to adopt as a new form of thinking, if that is new to you. And this is so important. And this is the most important thing, because if you are getting into magic on any reason, whether it's because you want more money or you want a man, that's okay. That's okay. You have to be real with yourself on where you're at right here, right now. So I'm going to be honest with you. When I was really coming into this, learning this thing to love